Welcome to the Malfunction Radio, powered by God Access. I'm Genesis, your guide into the chaos of cybersecurity, pen testing, and red teaming. From hacking systems to exposing vulnerabilities, we're here to break things and build them back stronger. If it's not malfunctioning, we're not doing it right. Now, over to your hosts, Adam and Eve, for today's breakdown.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tearing into a concept that's as technically sophisticated as it is, well, socially manipulative. It's got this deceptively benign name, almost sounds like a cozy streaming service. FileFlix.
Yeah, FileFlix. But if you're hearing that word, you need to immediately think high-stakes system compromise. We're really talking about an attack vector that turns the most routine, fundamental action you take in Windows, copying a file path.
It's just copying your path.
Just copying your path. Turns that into a direct launch command for malware. It bypasses several layers of security simply by exploiting the user interface itself.
That is the crucial distinction we need to make right off the top here. We aren't talking about like clicking phishing links or opening malicious attachments in emails. We are talking about weaponizing the Windows File Explorer address bar, the actual address bar.
Exactly. It's a fundamental exploitation of trust. Trust in the operating system's basic functionality.
So how does FileFlix work then? What's the trick?
Well, it tricks the user into pasting what they believe is just an innocuous network path, maybe like an SMB share, server share.
That's something you might get from IT or a colleague.
Precisely. But what they're actually pasting is a fully formed command. It's crafted to execute silently, instantly, and often results in, well, maybe a complete reverse shell, or even worse, the deployment of some really nasty information stealers. It just capitalizes on user familiarity and the trust we all place in the Windows GUI.
Okay. So for you, our dedicated learner, our mission today is pretty ambitious. We're going to chart the rapid evolution of this specific technique. We'll start right at the genesis, a simple proof of concept, a POC, and then follow the tradecraft as it moves out into the real world.
Yeah, and it culminates in these global campaigns that deploy multi-stage deception using really advanced, almost military-grade concealment methods. We're talking steganography here.
Wow, okay. And we've got detailed sources covering 3 distinct technical scenarios that show exactly how attackers refine their approach over time. We're going to dissect every step. All right, let's begin where the concept really started. The foundational technique. This was developed by a researcher, Mr. Docs, and we call it the classic FileFlix. This version relies completely on a file sharing scenario.
That's right. The user is basically asked to copy and paste a supposed SMB share path, something that looks totally normal, like server share document.pdf maybe.
And how do they get the user to do that? Is it an email?
It's usually presented on a malicious web page. The whole design of the page serves just one purpose: guide the user towards that File Explorer address bar. So when the user lands on the attacker's page, they might be prompted to, say, access a shared file or maybe upload a document.
Okay, seems normal enough.
And they click a button, something simple, labeled like Open File Explorer or Access Shared Drive. This triggers what looks like a typical file input pop-up, the one you always see when you browse for a file to upload.
But the upload feature is sabotaged.
Yeah.
That's part of the trick.
It's entirely intentional. Sabotage is a good word. If the user actually tries to, select a file and proceed with the upload, a JavaScript pop-up immediately interrupts them.
The classic error message maneuver.
Exactly. The message will say something frustrating but also kind of plausible, like security protocol requires manual access, or maybe file permission error detected, something vague. This forces the user to just abandon the normal workflow
and follow the attacker's highly specific displayed instructions instead. It's a classic misdirection play, isn't it? They make the normal process fail immediately to justify their custom malicious process.
You got it. It establishes that immediate failure.
That's where the psychological engineering really clicks into place. The user thinks, okay, my system or maybe the website is just having a technical glitch, so I have to follow these custom troubleshooting steps. And of course, those custom steps are the attack itself.
Correct. The instructions are very precise. They tell the user something like, click on the address bar in File Explorer, maybe adding or press Ctrl+L to highlight the path, then paste the full network path provided below and hit Enter.
And Ctrl plus L, that's pure muscle memory for anyone who uses Windows a lot. You do it constantly to jump to the address bar.
Totally relies on that muscle memory. They hit Ctrl plus L because they do it 10 times a day to quickly navigate a long path or type a new one.
Okay, so the user copies what they think is just the benign file path, the server share thing, but what's actually sitting in their clipboard is something much more sinister. It's a command, right, prepended to that path.
That's the core trick. Something much more sinister is in the clipboard. Let's look at the specific sort of minimal viable product payload used in this original POC.
Okay, what do they use?
The initial proof of concept uses a command that simply executes the native Windows calculator application, calc.exe. Dead simple.
calc.exe.
And this is prepended, stuck right on the front of the fake file share path. So let's imagine the full string they copied looks like this. calc.ex #serversharefile.txt.
Right, so when the user pastes that whole string into the File Explorer address bar, they probably see the whole thing for a split second. But when they hit Enter, how does Windows know to run the calculator and not try to navigate to that weird path? That seems like the core technical genius here.
The genius is that little hack symbol, the #. When the Windows File Explorer processes the input in its address bar, especially when it's trying to figure out a path that might contain executable elements, it processes the string sequentially from left to right.
Okay.
And in this context, the hashtag symbol acts as a comment delimiter. It's actually similar to how it works in some shell scripting languages or even in URLs sometimes.
Oh, so if the system sees calc.exe first, it just recognizes that as a valid immediate command to execute.
Absolutely. Bang, it runs the calculator. Then, as soon as the system parser hits that hashtag symbol, it basically treats everything that follows. The supposed network path server share file.txt dash as just a comment. It's essentially rendered inert, ignored for the purpose of command execution.
So it executes the command, hits the hash, and just stops processing the rest.
Pretty much, yeah. It executes the calc.exe part and effectively ignores the rest of the string as far as execution is concerned.
And the result for the poor victim, the calculator pops up on their screen. They might be momentarily confused thinking, why did the calculator open? I was trying to open a shared document. But their critical thinking is instantly diffused because they haven't seen a scary error message or a firewall warning, right?
Exactly that. The calculator pop-up serves two functions brilliantly, simultaneously. First, it confirms to the attacker that their command execution was successful. And second, it gives the victim a completely non-threatening, slightly weird explanation for the unexpected system behavior.
So the victim concludes, oh, that was weird. Maybe I hit a wrong key combination, or, must be a glitch. They don't suspect a system compromise.
Not at all. It's the perfect, stealthy start to an attack campaign. And critically, it proves that this trusted, everyday interface, the File Explorer address bar, can be completely weaponized. This foundation is what all the future, more complex scenarios we're about to discuss build upon.
Okay, a calculator is great for proof of concept, but obviously attackers want more. As we move into the first really evolved scenario, the one called the new joinee, the attacker's motivation shifts, right? They're aiming for, as the source puts it, complete control over a target system, like a threat actor would do in the real world.
Exactly, no more calculators. The goal here is a full reverse TCP shell connection, basically giving the attacker persistent, interactive control over the target's machine, remotely.
Which means the payload has to be much stealthier, more stable, and capable of executing without immediately triggering standard endpoint protection, like antivirus.
Absolutely, it needs to be reliable and sneaky.
So let's do a technical deep dive into this evolving payload. The sources indicate the attacker uses emsvenom. What does that specific choice tell us about their needs at this stage?
Well, emsvenom is kind of the go-to tool in the Metasploit framework for generating exploit payloads. It's versatile, they start there, and they specifically create a stageless interpreter reverse TCP payload.
Stageless, meaning?
Meaning the entire payload is delivered in one go. It doesn't need to download additional components or stages after initial execution, which makes it potentially less noisy on the network and maybe a bit more reliable if the connection is flaky. And it's tailored for a 64-bit Windows system.
Yeah, and the format they chose, Python reflection, that sounds highly specific. Why that format? Why not just a standard exe file or a simple VB script?
This is the first layer of real stealth we're seeing. Reflection-based payloads, especially in Python, are designed to execute directly in the memory of a legitimate process.
In memory.
Yeah,
So harder to detect.
Much harder. It's far stealthier than just dropping a standard binary file onto the disk, which antivirus scanners are constantly looking for. Executing in memory makes detection significantly more difficult for security tools that rely heavily on scanning the file system.
But using Python, doesn't that introduce a pretty big dependency? What if the target system doesn't happen to have the Python interpreter installed? The attack just fails immediately, right?
That's the catch. It's a significant dependency. If Python isn't there, the whole thing falls apart, so they have to solve that delivery problem.
How did they get around that?
They remove the dependency altogether by making the payload entirely self-contained. The attacker uses a really common, useful tool called PyInstaller.
PyInstaller, I've heard of that. It packages Python apps.
Exactly. This tool takes the original Python script, which, by the way, the sources note needed one crucial line added, import C types, to make sure the reflection mechanism actually worked properly.
Okay, import C types. Got it.
Right, so PyInstaller takes that script and bundles it all up into a single standalone executable file. In this scenario, they named it new-joiny.exe.
So PyInstaller effectively packages the necessary bits of the Python interpreter and all the required libraries right alongside the malicious code itself.
Precisely. The resulting .exe file is definitely larger, maybe significantly larger, but the key is it's completely portable. It guarantees that the payload will run successfully on virtually any modern Windows system, regardless of what software is already installed.
That makes sense. It maximizes their chances of success.
And the sources even noted that during their own testing, they ran into dependency issues, which just reinforces why real-world attackers must use something like PyInstaller to ensure maximum reach and reliability. You can't leave it to chance.
Okay, so now we have this ultimate self-contained payload, new-joiny.exe. Let's look at the social engineering required to actually deliver it. The new joinee scenario, this Elliot Alderson pretext,
Yeah.
it relies on an incredibly high level of trust, doesn't it?
Oh, it's brilliant social engineering because it targets arguably the most vulnerable period for any employee, their very first day on the job.
The onboarding phase.
Exactly. The victim receives an official-looking HR orientation email, supposedly from their new employer, Evil Core, as the researchers dubbed it. Everything about the email and the internal portal they're directed to is designed to look polished, professional, official. Well, it's like standard corporate compliance stuff.
And the call to action is something completely routine and mandatory, right?
Totally mundane. Review and acknowledge HR policy, something every new hire has to do.
So the victim clicks the link in the email. They're taken to this fake internal portal, which then presumably hits them with the FileFlix technique. They're instructed to copy and paste a path to access the policy document.
That's the setup. And the document itself is named something perfectly innocent, like hrpolicy.docx or maybe hrpolicy.audt. Looks legit.
Then this is where the command line they paste.
Yes, it's designed to meet the user's expectation instantly while simultaneously executing the compromise in the background. It's quite slick.
Okay, walk us through that complex command line. How does it satisfy the user's expectation first? That seems key to making it work.
Right. The command uses PowerShell's IWR-CMD-let, which is short for Invoke Web Request. It's a super versatile tool for downloading content from the web within PowerShell. The first part of the script uses IWR to download the actual legitimate HR policy document, let's say hrpolicy.audt, from the attacker's server.
They host a real document.
They have to, for the ruse to work. And crucially, the script immediately uses another command, start process, to open that downloaded document. So the user hits enter in the File Explorer bar, and boom, the HR policy they were expecting pops right up on their screen. Their task seems complete.
The moment that HR policy opens, the victim's critical guard just drops completely. They think, okay, success, weird process, but the technical glitch is solved. I've got the document.
Exactly. Meanwhile, silently, in the very same command chain they pasted, PowerShell is executing the second part.
The malicious part.
The malicious part. It uses IWR again to download the payload file, that new joiny.exe we talked about. It saves it stealthily, maybe to the user's documents folder or temp folder, somewhere inconspicuous, and then it executes it.
All in one command line.
All in one go.
Yeah.
Download, save, execute. And this is immediately followed by that crucial hashtag symbol, which comments out the fake path part of the string, ensuring the whole command executes smoothly without errors related to the path itself. The user sitting there maybe scrolling through the HR benefits package.
While the attacker is getting a reverse shell and gaining essentially root access to their machine.
Pretty much, yeah, complete control.
Wow. Okay, this brings us to a really critical security bypass that this whole technique achieves. Avoiding the mark of the web, or MOTW. For our listener, what exactly is MOTW, and why is bypassing it such a massive win for the attacker here?
MOTW, the mark of the web, is a fundamental security feature built into Windows. When you download a file from the internet, using your web browser could be an executable, a ZIP file, an Office document, anything really. Windows attaches a special hidden identifier to that file. It's actually stored in an alternate data stream, or ADS.
Okay, a hidden tag.
A hidden tag, exactly. This tag basically tells Windows, hey, this file came from the internet, potentially an untrusted zone. So when the system or an application like Microsoft Office tries to open or execute an MOTW tag file, it will typically throw up a security warning box.
Yellow bar in Office, or the "Are you sure you want to run this file?" pop up.
Those are the ones. It forces the user to explicitly confirm, yes, I trust this file and I want to run it, before it's allowed to execute fully or enable macros.
Which obviously would instantly derail this kind of stealthy attack.
Yep.
That warning is a huge red flag.
A complete showstopper for the attacker. But here's the bypass. Since the malicious command is executed directly from the trusted Windows File Explorer address bar, and the PowerShell script it launches, then downloads and executes the payload without the direct intervention of a web browser download process.
The file never gets that MOTW tag attached.
Exactly. It never gets the mark of the web. To the operating system, the new joiny.exe file appears as if it were perhaps created locally or maybe transferred via a trusted network share. It completely avoids triggering that MOTW security prompt.
It's huge.
It's massive. It elevates the likelihood of successful payload execution from just probable, if the user clicks through the warning, to near certain. This single technical insight, exploiting how MOTW is applied or not applied in this case, demonstrates the attacker's really sophisticated understanding of the Windows security model and how to work around it.
Okay, so in that last scenario, the new joiny, the attack relied on hijacking the address bar via a deliberately broken file upload feature. But as we move to scenario 2, the wonderfully named Netflix and chill, we see the attackers pivoting, right? They start exploiting a different piece of common user muscle memory, the file save functionality.
Yeah, this is a really crucial adaptation. It shows that FileFlix isn't just one specific trick. It's more of a methodology, a way of thinking about abusing user interaction with the file system via trusted interfaces.
And exploiting the save function.
Yeah.
That significantly broadens the potential attack surface, doesn't it?
Yes, massively.
Right.
Because not every user interaction involves uploading files, but practically every user interacts with websites that might ask them to save something, or they might just hit Ctrl+S out of habit.
Okay, so let's set the scene for Netflix and chill. We're picturing an avid movie enthusiast, right? They visit a fictional, but again, highly polished and slick-looking movie review website. Let's call it Cineverse. Looks totally legitimate, high quality, trustworthy.
Exactly. The attacker relies entirely on this perceived trust and legitimacy. The user arrives, maybe browses a few reviews, and then immediately encounters the most common, utterly normalized piece of digital bureaucracy imaginable. This website uses cookies, pop-up banner.
The bane of modern web browsing. You click accept without even thinking.
We all do. But what happens next here is specifically calculated to create confusion and then leverage compliance.
How so?
Instead of the banner just disappearing like usual, after the user clicks accept, they receive an unexpected, slightly frustrating error message. It claims the site couldn't save their user cookies properly, maybe blaming it on a local configuration issue or something equally vague.
Another manufactured problem.
Another manufactured problem. Now, the fix the website provides isn't a helpful link or a settings change. It's a very specific instruction, something like, to repair the local cookie cache and ensure proper site functionality, you must save the necessary configuration file manually. Please hit Ctrl+S now.
Ctrl+S. Again, pure muscle memory for saving work, saving documents, saving web pages. Frustration leads to compliance. The user thinks, fine, whatever gets this working. They hit Ctrl+S.
Which, of course, opens the standard Windows Save As dialog box in File Explorer. And the instruction is precise, critically precise. They must save the file as cookies.hta.
Cookies.hta, not .txt, not config, but .hta.
Yep.
That specific extension, .hta, is the weapon of choice here, isn't it? This is where the real danger lies.
It absolutely is. HTA stands for HTML application. Now, for the listener, if you ever encounter something asking you to save or run a .hta file, you need to understand the extreme danger. HTA is a Microsoft Windows file format, kind of a legacy technology now, but it's essentially a built-in loophole in the standard web security model.
Okay, explain that loophole. Why is saving something as an HTA file so much more dangerous than saving, say, a standard HTML file or a simple text file?
Right. So modern web browsers like Chrome, Firefox, Edge, they operate within a very strict security sandbox. They're deliberately prevented from accessing your local file system directly or running arbitrary system commands. That's fundamental web security.
Makes sense.
HTA files, however, are not run by the browser itself. When you double-click an HTA file, it's executed by a different Windows operating system utility called the Microsoft HTML Application Host, or MSAT.exe.
MSTA.exe.
Okay. And because MST.exe is a native Windows application running outside the browser sandbox, the HTA file it executes runs with the full privileges of a normal desktop application. It's not restricted like a web page.
Full privileges, meaning it can do basically anything the user can do. Access files, change registry settings, run scripts.
Pretty much, yes. It can access the entire file system, read and write to the registry, and crucially, it can run embedded scripting languages like VBScript or JScript without any of the typical security restrictions a browser would impose. It completely bypasses the sandbox.
Wow. Okay, so when the victim saves and then double-clicks that cookies.hta file, they probably think they're just opening some kind of passive text configuration file to fix the cookie issue.
That's the assumption they're led to make.
But they are actually launching a fully privileged, potentially silently executing application directly on their system.
Absolutely. The HTA file itself contains malicious VBScript code embedded within standard-looking HTML. When the user executes it by double-clicking, that VBScript springs into action.
What does the script do first?
Well, the sources indicate the script might first run a quick check, maybe using WMI, to ensure the operating system is indeed Windows NT, meaning a modern Windows version, just confirming it's a suitable target. Then it immediately does something to reinforce the pretext.
A fake error message?
The fake error message. It displays a convincing yet totally bogus error message box that says something like, "Oops, there was an issue saving your cookies. Please try visiting the site again later." This does two things. It captures the user's immediate attention, making them focus on the error.
And it provides a plausible reason for why double-clicking the file didn't seem to fix anything. They're focused on the oops, totally oblivious to the real payload that's firing off silently in the background.
Precisely. Hidden from the user's view, while that error box is maybe still on screen, the VBScript calls an internal function. The researchers saw it name things like run ping or something equally benign sounding, clearly meant to evade casual inspection.
And that function delivers the payload.
That function kicks off the payload delivery. It constructs and executes a PowerShell command, very similar actually to the one we saw in the new joinee scenario, which uses invoke web request or a similar method to download the new joinee.exe payload, or whatever the current payload is, from the attacker server, save it locally, and execute it.
And because the whole execution chain originated from an HTA file, which is run by the trusted MSJA.exe framework, the attack payload achieves what the sources dramatically but accurately call God access to the machine. Full user privileges, running silently, all without triggering the mark of the web warnings, and often slipping past less sophisticated antivirus solutions because the initial vector wasn't a typical malware executable download.
The psychological manipulation is just stunning here. They manufacture a common everyday technical error, cookie failure, then provide a specific plausible-sounding manual fix, Ctrl+S, save as .hta, which requires user actions that feel familiar. But that .hta extension is the loaded gun, and double-clicking it is the trigger for a full system compromise.
It's a beautiful, nasty piece of work. It turns user helpfulness and compliance completely against them.
Okay, we've tracked FileFlix from a theoretical POC using the hash trick, through a more refined payload delivery in the new joinee scenario, and then into exploiting browser save functionality with HTAs and Netflix and chill. Now we enter the final and, frankly, the most sophisticated phase we have sources on, the real-world campaign discovered and documented by Acronas's Threat Research Unit. Right. This discovery was significant because it confirmed that FileFlix wasn't just a researcher's curiosity anymore. It had officially moved from the labs and proof of concepts into being actively used in global, real-world threat campaigns.
And this campaign demonstrates a massive leap in complexity, doesn't it? The end goal here is no longer just about getting a reverse shell or basic access. The final payload they were delivering was the notorious StealC info stealer.
Yes, StealC. That tells you everything about the attacker's motivation.
Yeah.
Financial gain.
Info stealers like StealC are basically the gold standard for cybercrime monetization these days. What exactly is DLC designed to target? What information is it after?
SteelC is designed to vacuum up high-value digital assets. We're talking about credentials stored in web browsers, saved passwords, session cookies, autofill data, but perhaps more importantly, it specifically targets cryptocurrency wallet keys and files, and also credentials for cloud services like AWS or Azure tokens if they're stored locally.
Wow. So for an attacker, successfully deploying this means potentially immediate and possibly very high financial returns. Accessing crypto wallets or cloud accounts, that's serious.
Extremely serious. The entire multi-stage infection chain we're about to break down is designed with this lucrative end goal firmly in mind. The complexity is justified by the potential payoff.
And to justify forcing a user through the FileFlix steps for such a high-stakes payload, the social engineering pretext had to be equally compelling, equally high stakes. They chose brand impersonation, right? Meta or Facebook.
Yeah, they went big. The threat actors relied heavily on creating urgency and fear. The initial vector was a phishing email, carefully disguised as an official Facebook or Meta security alert.
What did the alert say?
It warned the victim of an impending severe consequence. Their account was facing closure, something like a short 7-day suspension immediately, followed by permanent deletion of the entire account within 180 days if they didn't appeal.
That threat of losing your entire social media history, photos, connections, that forces people to act immediately, doesn't it? It bypasses careful thought.
Absolutely. That imminent, significant loss drives the victim straight to the next stage, a meticulously crafted phishing website. This site was designed to look exactly like an official Meta help support page where they could supposedly appeal the suspension.
Okay, so they land on this fake appeal page, desperate to save their account. And presumably, to file the appeal, they're instructed they need to access some kind of critical security document or appeal form.
Which naturally requires them to go through the now familiar FileFlix copy and paste steps. Copy this path, paste it into the File Explorer address bar, hit enter.
But the resulting deception here is even tighter, more psychologically effective than in the previous scenarios. Once the multi-stage malicious command is executed from the address bar, what does the user actually see? They don't see a calculator or an HR policy this time?
No, nothing helpful or benign pops up. Instead, they are deliberately met with generalized, frustrating error messages. Things like, no file is found, or path incorrect, please verify your input.
Ah, so the attacker wants the victim to believe the appeal process simply failed due to a technical misstep on their part or just a broken link.
Precisely. This ensures the victim remains focused entirely on the error message and their failed attempt to get the document. They're frustrated. Maybe they try again, maybe they give up, but their attention is completely diverted from the silent, successful system compromise that just occurred in the background.
Okay, let's turn to the absolute technical peak of this campaign, the part that really elevates it, the use of steganography. This is how the attackers achieved an unparalleled level of stealth, hiding their malicious components. For the listener, we need a really clear definition of what steganography means in this specific context.
Right. Steganography, the word itself, literally means covered writing. In cybersecurity, it's the practice of concealing a secret message, or in this case, executable code, within a seemingly harmless carrier file. Typically, this is an image file, like a JPEG or PNG, or maybe an audio file.
So it's different from encryption, right? Encryption scrambles data so it looks like nonsense, but you can still see the encrypted data exists.
Exactly. Encryption hides the content. Steganography hides the very existence of the secret data. To the naked eye, and importantly to most basic security scanners or file analysis tools, the carrier image just looks like a normal JPEG. The sources mention seeing things like a scenic landscape photo, or even an image of Lara Croft being used, completely innocuous on the surface.
So the attacker isn't just embedding a single script. They're embedding an entire secondary infection chain, multiple components, inside one benign-looking JPEG image file.
Precisely that. In this campaign, they hid both a crucial second-stage PowerShell script and potentially other encrypted executables or configuration files, all bundled together inside this image.
Wow. That forces endpoint detection systems, EDR, to do something much harder than just spotting a downloaded .exe file. They'd have to not only detect the initial script execution from the address bar, but also somehow recognize that a downloaded JPEG file is being used as a container for malicious code extraction.
Exponentially harder to flag reliably without generating tons of false positives. It's a very effective way to smuggle later-stage tools past initial defenses.
Okay, let's break down the full multi-stage infection chain that orchestrates this steganography-based attack. It starts, as always, with the initial paste into the File Explorer address bar, stage 0.
Stage 0, the initial paste. The user pastes what is likely a highly obfuscated PowerShell command. We didn't see the exact command in the sources, but its sole purpose is clear. Download a batch script file. This script was named appeal.bat, tying into the Facebook appeal pretext.
And where does it download it?
To a seemingly harmless, often less monitored location like the user's personal music folder, pursuit yours or profile %.
Yes.
And crucially, the PowerShell command executes this downloaded appeal.bat immediately using start process. And critically, it uses the last window style hidden flag.
Window style hidden, so the entire batch script execution occurs without opening any visible black command prompt windows on the user's screen. Completely silent.
Completely silent from the user's perspective. That moves us to stage 1, the batch script, the heavy lifter. This bat file is where the main orchestration happens, executing a rapid, hidden sequence of commands.
What's the first thing the batch script does?
First, it likely changes the current working directory to that music folder, where it knows it's running from. Then, using embedded PowerShell commands, or maybe curl or bitsadmin, it downloads 2 critical files from the attacker's command and control server. 1, the cover image file, for example, alara.jpg. 2, the steganography extraction tool itself, likely packaged as steghide.zip.
Steghide, that's a known, legitimate steganography tool, right?
It is a common open-source tool. The script then immediately extracts the steghide.exe tool from the downloaded zip file, probably into a temporary subfolder within the music directory.
And this is the moment of truth, right? Where the hidden payload inside the image is finally revealed.
This is the core of the steganographic step. The batch script then executes the freshly extracted steghide.exe. It uses the command line interface of steghide, providing specific parameters. Critically, it uses a known, hard-coded password. The sources saw secret 123 being used.
Wait, secret 123, seriously, that's the password protecting the hidden payload?
Yeah, not exactly Fort Knox, but remember, the primary goal here isn't unbreakable encryption, it's concealment. Even a simple password prevents casual analysis tools from immediately seeing the embedded data. You need the right tool and the password to extract it.
Okay, fair point. So steghide.exe runs with the password.
And it's pointed at the downloaded image file, lara.jpg. Its task is to extract the hidden file embedded within it. This hidden file is the second stage payload, a PowerShell script, which the attackers named extractedcmd.ps1. The fact that this critical part of the attack chain is password protected and embedded inside an image adds significant friction for any security analyst trying to reverse engineer the attack later. They need to find the batch script, find the image, find the tool, and figure out the password.
Okay, so now the attacker has successfully smuggled their second stage PowerShell script onto the system, extracted it from the image, and it's sitting there in the music folder. That brings us to stage 2, the extracted script.
Right. Now, the attacker has a clean, executable PowerShell script, extractedcmd.ps1, that likely contains less obfuscation and can perform more complex actions than the initial one-liner pasted into the address bar. The batch script then executes this extracted PowerShell script.
Silently again, presumably.
Absolutely. Likely using PowerShell.exe-execution policy bypass-file extracted cmd.ps1 or similar flags to ensure it runs, even if system policies normally restrict script execution. This final script performs the critical action. It reaches out to the attacker's server one last time to download and run the ultimate target, the StealC info stealer, which they still named newjoiny.exe in this analysis.
And that's the moment the system is fully compromised and the credential harvesting process begins.
That's the moment. The StealC payload is now running, likely injecting itself into other processes and starting to scrape for browser data, crypto wallets, cloud keys, everything it's designed to find.
The technical sophistication, the layering, it's truly staggering. But, as you always remind us, sophisticated attackers know the job isn't really done until the tracks are covered as much as possible and persistence is established. Let's look at the meticulous cleanup and evasion tactics built right into that orchestrating batch script.
Yeah, the cleanup is crucial for stealth. It's designed to eliminate almost every temporary file or artifact that could possibly alert a savvy user or a forensic investigator later on. The batch script systematically goes back and deletes the evidence.
What does it delete?
It deletes the downloaded cover image, lara.jpg, the downloaded steghide.zip file, the extracted PowerShell script, extractedcmd.ps1, and probably the entire folder containing the extracted steghide.exe tool. This ensures that only the final critical payload remains on the system. All the staging components vanish.
But the final malware payload itself, the StealC info stealer, newjoiny.exe, is not deleted. That needs to stick around, right? So it's concealed instead, ensuring persistence.
Exactly. This is a classic defensive evasion technique that everyone listening needs to be aware of. Instead of deleting the final infestealer, the batch script executes a specific Windows command. attrib plus h plus s plus r new joinee.exe.
Attrib, the attribute command. What do those flags plus h plus s plus r do?
This is a vital trace evasion maneuver. It sets 3 critical file attributes on the malware executable. Plus, OCH makes the file hidden. It won't show up in File Explorer by default unless the user has enabled Show Hidden Files and Folders. Plus, S marks the file as a system file. This provides an additional layer of hiding, often requiring unchecking hide-protected operating system files, and can sometimes make the file seem more legitimate or untouchable if discovered. Plus, R sets the file to read-only. This makes it slightly harder to delete accidentally.
So this makes the payload effectively invisible to the average user browsing their files, and also somewhat resistant to simple dilution attempts. It ensures the StealC infostealer persists across system reboots and continues running without detection by casual inspection.
Precisely. It's all about maximizing persistence while minimizing visibility.
And then there's the final piece of the deception puzzle, the closing error message for the user.
Yes. The batch file ensures that the psychological loop is completely closed for the victim. Remember, they were trying to appeal their Facebook suspension. The script uses the mshta.exe utility again, this time probably with an embedded VBScript one-liner, to display one final fake error message box.
What does it say this time?
Something perfectly aligned with their failed attempt. No PDF appeal form was found. Please connect with Meta support through official channels. They use mishta because it allows for the easy display of these GUI error messages while keeping the execution of the underlying batch script window completely hidden.
So the victim is left frustrated thinking, okay, the appeal process on this page is broken. I guess I failed to get the form. They accept the error.
While the attackers have already secured full access and their StealC malware is busy harvesting credentials in the background. And the final act,
The batch script cleans up after itself.
the batch script deletes itself. The very last command is often something like del q preset s0. This command tells the batch file to quietly delete itself, erasing the initial command sequence that orchestrated the entire complex infection chain. Masterful in a terrifying way. #tag outro.
Wow. Okay, let's take a deep breath. We've really tracked FileFlix here from what started as a simple, almost academic command injection curiosity, exploiting that little hashtag symbol in the address bar.
Yeah, just pop in a calc.
All the way to a complex, multi-layered, real-world global campaign. We saw the attack vector grow from that basic POC to using much more advanced social engineering pretexts, fake HR policies, bogus cookie errors.
And the technical evolution was just as dramatic, moving to sophisticated payloads like Meterpreter, using PyInstaller for portability.
And then culminating in this high-stealth evasion, blending the mark of the web bypass with password-protected steganography hidden inside JPEG images, all orchestrated by self-deleting batch scripts.
I think the key takeaway for everyone listening, the so what here, is that these incredibly sophisticated threat chains are built not just on clever technical ingenuity, although there's plenty of that, but primarily, fundamentally, on the exploitation of trust.
Trust seems to be the core vulnerability.
Absolutely. They leverage your inherent trust in official-looking corporate communications, your learned acceptance of common website errors and cookie banners, and your deeply ingrained, almost unconscious belief that the Windows File Explorer address bar is simply a navigation tool, not an execution vector.
And every technical choice they made along the way, from using Python reflection for in-memory execution to packaging with PyInstaller to avoid dependencies, right down to using the attrib command to hide the final payload. It was all about maximizing stealth, ensuring reliability, and minimizing any reliance on the specific configuration of the target environment.
The blending of that deep social engineering and the technical wizardry is just seamless. They absolutely rely on the fact that when you're feeling frustrated by an error, or maybe pressured by an urgent deadline or a threat like a pinning account suspension, your natural critical thinking, your security awareness, it just takes a backseat for a moment.
You just want to solve the problem, get the task done.
Exactly. And if we connect this back to the bigger picture of information security, it really raises an incredibly important point about essentially psychological warfare in cyberspace.
Yeah.
The most dangerous attacks, the ones that persist the longest and do the most damage, are often those that successfully provide the victim with a rational, non-malicious explanation for failure.
Like the examples we saw, The cookies couldn't save, the PDF wasn't found.
Right. The victim accepts that plausible error message, shrugs, maybe gets annoyed, but ultimately moves on, completely unaware that a total system compromise occurred just beneath the surface of that seemingly simple, failed action.
So here's our final provocative thought for you, the listener, to consider as you navigate the digital world every day. How often do you encounter a digital error message, a website glitch, a file that won't open? How often do you click OK on an error box out of sheer frustration, without pausing to question the specific actions, the specific clicks or copy-paste you took just moments before that error appeared?
Could that frustrating little technical failure, that moment of, ugh, this isn't working, actually be the smokescreen? Could it be the exact moment your system was compromised and you simply accepted the perfectly manufactured alibi the attacker provided?
Something to think about. Stay curious, stay critical, and thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.
Thank you for tuning into the Malfunction Radio powered by God Access. That was a great breakdown from Adam and Eve. It's been a pleasure guiding you through today's deep dive into the world of cybersecurity and red teaming. Remember, if it's not malfunctioning, we're not doing it right. Stay curious, stay secure, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Bye!